Knights gliding effortlessly across battlefields in gleaming plate armor. Warriors doing acrobatics while fully armored. Soldiers wearing metal suits for days without issue. Hollywood has turned medieval armor into magical second skin that somehow doesn't restrict, exhaust, or slowly cook its wearer alive. The reality was brutally different. Real knights spent years training their bodies to function in 50 to 60 pounds of metal that restricted movement, trapped heat, and required constant maintenance. Wearing armor wasn't putting on protective clothing, it was operating a survival system that could save your life or kill you depending on weather, terrain, and how well you prepared. Once you understand how knights actually wore their armor, every movie fight scene becomes absurd fantasy. Stand in a knight's tent before battle and watch the arming process. You'd see it take a minimum 15 to 20 minutes with trained help, not the quick montage Hollywood shows. Each piece had specific order, specific attachment method, specific adjustments needed for proper fit and function. You'd start with the arming doublet, a padded jacket that provided cushioning and had attachment points for other pieces. Then the mail shirt, 20 to 30 pounds of interlocking metal rings that took significant effort to pull over your head. You'd feel the weight settle on your shoulders immediately, knowing this was just the beginning. The leg armor came next. You'd watch the squire attach cuisses to protect thighs, purlins for knees, greaves for shins, each piece buckled or strapped to the arming doublet or directly to legs. Each adjustment mattered. Too loose and armor shifted dangerously during movement. Too tight and circulation got cut off. Arm protection followed the same principle. You'd see rear brace for upper arms, couters for elbows, vambraces for forearms, each piece articulated to allow movement while providing protection. The gauntlets were last for the arms, complex arrangements of plates and mail that let fingers bend while protecting hands. The cuirass, chest and back plates came next. You'd feel the weight distribution shift as the heaviest pieces were added. The breastplate alone could weigh 15 to 20 pounds. Combined with the backplate, you'd feel like you were wearing a metal shell that fought every breath. The pauldrons, shoulder armor, attached to the cuirass, often with overlapping plates that looked impressive, but added weight and restriction. Finally, the helmet. You'd watch it lowered over your head and feel your world narrow to a slit. Vision restricted, hearing muffled, breathing immediately labored. The psychological shift was immediate. You were no longer a person. You were a tank, heavy, powerful, vulnerable. Getting into full plate armor took trained help and 20 minutes minimum, and knights felt the weight from the first piece to the last. Stand fully armored and try to move normally. You'd discover immediately what Hollywood never shows. Armor didn't just restrict movement, it fundamentally changed how you could move. You couldn't raise your arms fully above your head. The pauldrons and cuirass design prevented it. You'd find your upper reach limited to perhaps 135 degrees. Enough for weapon work, not enough for climbing or reaching overhead. Movies show knights climbing siege ladders in full armor. Real knights knew that was suicide. Twisting at the waist was similarly restricted. You'd feel the cuirass preventing full torso rotation. To look behind you required turning your entire body. The helmet and gorget ensemble prevented simple head turns. The tactical implications were severe. Enemies approaching from sides or rear had massive advantage because you couldn't quickly reorient. Getting down was manageable. Getting back up was the problem. You'd need to roll to your hands and knees, use your weapon as brace, push yourself upright. The process took seconds, during which you were completely vulnerable. That's why knights fought desperately to stay on their feet. Going down was often a death sentence. The articulation quality mattered enormously. You'd see expensive custom armor with carefully designed joints that allowed relatively good movement within the restrictions. Cheaper armor or poorly fitted armor turned wearers into rigid statues who couldn't fight effectively. The differences between life and death was often craftsman quality and proper fitting. Certain movements became impossible. You'd find you couldn't bend forward past roughly 45 degrees. The cuirass prevented it. Couldn't squat fully, the leg armor didn't allow it. Couldn't run, the weight and restriction limited you to armored trot at best. Knights who needed to move quickly dismounted and removed armor pieces strategically. The fatigue from restricted movement compounded with weight. You'd burn more calories performing simple tasks because armor fought every motion. Standing still in armor was tiring. Moving in armor was exhausting. Fighting in armor was surviving as long as your conditioning allowed. Armor didn't just restrict specific movements, it fundamentally changed biomechanics and made everything harder. Stand in armor on a summer day and you'd understand within minutes why heat killed more armored knights than enemy weapons. You'd feel sweat starting immediately, not just from exertion, but from being sealed in a metal oven with no ventilation. The physics were brutal. Metal absorbed heat from the sun and your body. The padding underneath trapped that heat against your skin. You'd produce heat through exertion. All that thermal energy had nowhere to go. Temperature inside armor could be 20 to 30 degrees hotter than ambient temperature. You'd watch sweat pouring off you within 30 minutes of wearing armor. Your arming doublet would become soaked. Your skin would be slippery inside gauntlets. Sweat would run into your eyes inside the helmet, burning and blurring vision. You couldn't wipe your face, couldn't remove the helmet without help. Just had to endure. Heat exhaustion symptoms would start appearing: dizziness, nausea, confusion, weakness. You'd see knights on campaign collapsing not from wounds but from their bodies overheating. The armor that protected them from weapons killed them through heat stress. Winter brought the opposite problem. You'd feel metal conducting heat away from your body. The padding helped, but metal against skin through mail or at gaps was agonizingly cold. Knights wore multiple layers underneath in winter, which added weight and restriction but was necessary for survival. The tactical implications were severe. You'd see armies scheduling battles for morning or evening to avoid midday heat. Campaigns in summer were shorter because knights literally couldn't operate in armor for extended periods. The glorious medieval warfare movies were limited by human body's ability to manage heat in metal suits. Hydration was critical but difficult. You'd need to remove your helmet to drink, impossible during combat. Knights learned to drink heavily before armoring up and endured thirst during fighting. Dehydration combined with heat stress was a common cause of combat ineffectiveness and collapse. Heat killed armored knights more reliably than many weapons. And Hollywood never shows the sweat, exhaustion, or heat-related collapse. Stand in armor for hours and you'd feel what movies ignore: armor hurts. The weight distributed across the body created pressure points. The metal edges rubbed against skin despite padding. The constant friction caused injuries that could disable knights as effectively as enemy weapons. You'd develop chafing first. The mail shirt rubbed against neck, wrists, anywhere metal contacted skin directly. The movement of armor pieces against padding created friction that abraded skin. After hours, you'd feel raw patches burning with every motion. After days of campaign, you'd have open sores that infected easily. The pressure points were predictable and unavoidable. You'd feel shoulders bearing the weight of mail and cuirass. The distribution was better than carrying equivalent weight in a pack, but hours of pressure caused deep aching that didn't stop when armor came off. Some knights developed permanent shoulder damage from years of armor wearing. The straps and buckles created their own problems. You'd feel them digging into flesh, especially at joints where movement tightened them repeatedly. Improperly adjusted straps could cut off circulation. You'd lose feeling in hands or feet, which was dangerous during combat. Too loose and armor shifted dangerously. Impact injuries happened even when armor held. You'd feel blunt force trauma through the metal. An enemy mace hitting your cuirass might not penetrate, but the impact would bruise ribs, possibly crack them. The armor distributed force but couldn't eliminate it. You'd be covered in bruises after battle despite armor preventing actual wounds. The helmet created specific miseries. You'd feel it pressing on your head, the weight causing neck strain. The padding inside would become soaked with sweat, creating a wet, salty environment that irritated the scalp. The pressure could cause headaches that lasted for hours after removing the helmet. Long-term damage accumulated. You'd see veteran knights with permanent joint problems, chronic pain, skeletal deformities from years of bearing armor weight. The protection came with physical costs that knights paid for decades after their fighting days ended. Armor protected knights from enemy weapons but created its own catalogue of painful injuries from the simple act of wearing it. Stand after battle and watch knights immediately start armor maintenance. You'd see that armor required constant care. Neglect it for even days and rust would start destroying expensive equipment that represented years of a craftsman's wages. The cleaning process was tedious. You'd watch squires removing blood, mud and other battlefield debris. Every joint had to be checked for damage, every strap inspected for wear. Mail had to be cleaned ring by ring, literally tens of thousands of individual metal rings that could rust break, or come loose. Rust was a constant enemy. You'd see knights using oil, sand, and cloth to prevent oxidation. The armor had to be oiled regularly, especially mail, which had enormous surface area. Mist spots and rust would appear within days, weakening the metal. In humid climates or rainy campaigns, the battle against rust was nearly unwinnable. Damage repair was skilled work. You'd watch armorers hammering out dents, replacing broken straps, reattaching rivets. Even armor that successfully protected its wearer often sustained damage that needed fixing. A dent that didn't seem serious could restrict movement or create weak points for future attacks. The cost of maintenance was significant. You'd see knights spending substantial portions of their income on armor upkeep. Oil, replacement parts, armorer services, all expensive. Poor knights who couldn't afford proper maintenance fought in degraded armor that was less protective and more likely to fail catastrophically. Storage mattered too. You'd watch armor being carefully stored in dry areas, sometimes hung to prevent pressure points that could deform metal over time. The investment was too large to risk through careless storage. A suit of plate armor cost the equivalent of a modern luxury car. You didn't just toss it in a corner. Armor required constant maintenance that was time-consuming, expensive, and critical to survival. Neglect meant rust, failure, and death. Stand in melee wearing full armor and you'd discover that victory went not to the most skilled fighter, but to the one who could keep functioning the longest. Armor turned combat into an endurance test where conditioning mattered more than technique. You'd feel exhaustion setting in within minutes. Every sword swing required extra effort to overcome armor's weight and restrictions. Every dodge or parry demanded more energy than unarmored movement. Your breathing would become labored, each breath restricted by cuirass pressing on your chest. The psychological dimension was intense. You'd feel claustrophobic inside the helmet. The restricted vision and hearing created constant uncertainty about threats. The weight and restriction made you feel slow, vulnerable, despite the protection. Mental fatigue added to physical exhaustion. Water and food became critical and inaccessible. You'd be burning calories at an extreme rate, but couldn't eat or drink without removing your helmet. Impossible during combat. The energy deficit accumulated, making every movement harder. Knights learned to fuel heavily before combat and accept the decline during fighting. Watch experienced knights and you'd see them fighting in bursts. Intense activity for 30 to 60 seconds, then defensive posture while recovering breath. Novices exhausted themselves in the first few minutes and became helpless. The skill wasn't swordsmanship, it was energy management within armor's restrictions. The terrain multiplied every challenge. You'd feel armor's weight differently on slopes. Uphill was agony, downhill was controlled falling. Mud sucked at your feet with every step. Uneven ground threatened your balance constantly. The tactical advantage always went to whoever fought on favorable terrain. Armored combat was won by conditioning and endurance. Skill mattered less than the ability to keep functioning when your body screamed to stop. Movies show armor as a slight inconvenience that heroes overcome with determination. Real armor was a survival system that required years of training, constant maintenance, and acceptance that wearing it would hurt, exhaust, and potentially kill you through heat stress or immobility. Hollywood shows knights moving normally in armor. Real knights moved in fundamentally different ways, restricted, calculated, energy conscious. The biomechanics changed completely. What looked clumsy was actually optimized movement within severe restrictions. Films ignore the time and help needed to wear armor. You'd see the 20-minute arming process, the squire's critical role, the vulnerability during the transition. Knights didn't throw on armor quickly when ambushed. They died unarmored or fled because proper arming was impossible under time pressure. Heat management never appears in movies. Real campaigns were limited by how long knights could function in armor without dying from heat exhaustion. Summer battles happened early or late in the day. Midday fighting in armor was literally deadly. Movies show armor as purely protective. Real armor protected from some threats while creating others. Heat injury, restricted mobility, exhaustion, chafing injuries, rust if improperly maintained. The protection came with comprehensive costs Hollywood ignores. Modern people romanticize knights in armor without understanding the physical reality. We imagine feeling powerful and protected. Stand in real armor and you'd feel trapped, hot, exhausted, and vulnerable despite the metal shell. The protection was real, but so were the costs. Knights didn't wear armour easily. They endured it through training, accepted its costs, and knew that wearing it wrong or in wrong conditions could kill them as efficiently as enemy weapons.